Hello and welcome to Empowerment Path. My name is Alison Kerr. Today I would like to talk about ADHD and drugs. This is something that I have shied away from, but I strongly feel we need to start talking more about it because the two can very much go hand in hand. That has been my own personal experience and also what I'm seeing around me, not with everybody, but it definitely can be a part of it. The more I have kind of researched and looked into this, our prisons and our streets are full of people with ADHD that haven't received the support that they've needed. And there's lots of reasons why people with ADHD turn to drugs. I myself, was taking drugs from an early age. And I just thought this was because I was messed up from the chaotic family that I grew up in. But as I've got older and then I've learned more about ADHD, I understand that the two can very much go hand in hand. There can be a lot of anxiety with ADHD. Our nervous systems are more sensitive. They can feel really frazzled. And I believe that is why I started smoking hash and grass from 15, 16, 17, something, maybe round about that age. And that was something that just helped to calm things down, to soothe things, to numb things slightly. Now, I'm not advocating for drugs. Obviously, they're illegal, and also there's a lot of downsides. I'm just trying to explain the why people can do that. Another drug that I got into quite early on was speed. I think it's methamphetamine, but we called it speed. I now understand that speed is similar to Ritalin, or the ADHD medication that's given. So there's lots of other people that will be talking. You'll be able to find the information that go into the science behind it. But my understanding of it is there's, taking these stimulants, which might sound quite counterintuitive when we're always on the go, or our brains are always on the go. This stimulant helps to focus. One of our operating systems doesn't, the kind of daydreaming one, that doesn't just switch off to move into focus mode easily the way it does with neurotypical people. But this is where the Ritalin or the speed or whatever, that is helping us to then focus and calming down a certain part of the brain to, to make things more like neurotypical people for us while we're under the influence. But obviously there's the down. What goes up must come down. And I myself stopped taking it because I couldn't cope with the come down. When I was taking it, I felt great. It helped me to be less inhibited. But I mean, I don't mean running about naked or doing daft things. I mean, it helped me to feel more confident within myself, because there can be a real lack of confidence there as well with people that are neurodiverse. And people might think because they're so loud or extrovert or whatever, that actually they're super confident. Not always the case, and often not the case, because unworthiness and ADHD often go hand in hand too, which I've talked about in previous videos. So, yeah, I would have been accused of, I said to somebody when I discovered that I had ADHD, and they said, oh, what is that? What is ADHD? Is that show-offs? And I just shook my head and thought, I'm not even going to talk to this person. People have such a misunderstanding. Because I am direct, because I can be outspoken and speak up for the underdog or things that I think are wrong. There can be some people would say a lack of filter, or maybe it's just a strong sense of injustice either towards ourselves or towards others. But people then would maybe think I'm too confident. And actually inside that was not how I was feeling. When I grew up, I was holding down a normal job in the corporate world, and life was very compartmentalized. And I was doing my corporate job and being that person. And then at the weekends, I was going out clubbing and I was taking ecstasy or MDMA. And it was great. And it had the downside as well. But as I've learned, MDMA got mentioned also in one of the talks, the ADHD talks, as I've gone on the steep learning curve to learn all about it for my own understanding and to help me support my daughter. I'm not saying she's taking it, but the point is the more we can learn, the more we can stop them going down that route and give them the other coping mechanisms that don't have a negative downside. But the MDMA got mentioned as well. So the opposite of sobriety, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And what I realized, again, taking the MDMA with a neurodiverse brain is doing something different for us and helping us to feel more normal. And it's that, again, that sense of belonging, that sense of connection. The barriers were down. Didn't matter if you were black or white, Rangers or Celtic, Catholic, Protestant, rich, poor, English, Scottish, all the old points of contention or division didn't seem to matter. They faded away and we were just all people meeting on an equal playing field, and that was what was beautiful about it. But again, it's illegal. I'm sure there's possibly negative things that it's doing to your physical body, and then the come down. So with neurodiversity, we tend to feel things a lot more deeply, and the highs can be high and the lows can be low. So if you're then taking a drug that is, making you feel fabulous, and that's why you do it, but then you know that over the next couple of days, you're going to have that downward cycle. And I think people used to call it Suicide Tuesday. Seemed to hit me on a Wednesday, and that was from my Friday night out. And you would get this real, the best way I could describe it is hollow feeling. Even watching television or listening to music, it was like something was seriously missing. It was hollow. I was hollow, the void of feeling anything positive, no hope, no joy, no, and trust me, it was grim. So this is a reason why it's not a good thing for anybody, and it's especially not good for people with ADHD, because if you're going through these cycles of anxiety and depression anyway, which can very much be a part of it, it was for me, then you really don't want to be intensifying that low, because that can seem really quite unbearable, and this is what we want to avoid. So really just to raise a wee bit of awareness that people are not always taking drugs just to be cool or to get high. They're doing it as self-medicating in the same way that people drink alcohol. And it can be workaholism, it can be sexual relationships, it can be, we can get addicted to exercise. There's so many things, and really we want to learn better tools for regulating our emotions and healing our unworthiness, healing our trauma. That's what I've been doing over the last 30 years, with little support from the mainstream system. The mainstream system seems to be really overloaded and unable to cope. And many, I say children and teenagers and people in their 20s, I have been supporting a couple of young men, one of whom is 28, one of whom is 36. And they're doing drugs, and it's a different drug now that seems to be quite common, and one of the common drugs that they use is ketamine. And I don't have any experience of that. That wasn't around at that time in my life, although I probably would have taken it, and it may have felt helpful to me. But ketamine is a horse tranquilizer, so I can understand that taking that, again, that's calming everything down, because our minds can just be 100 miles an hour all of the time, and it's difficult, it's exhausting, and actually it uses up a ton of our energy, this mental brain. We can have a lot of cortisol and adrenaline running through our bodies, so it can be running 100 miles an hour and then we can crash. And that was a cycle that I repeated. You can feel as though you're run by a motor, and well, here's an example. When we would go out clubbing, all my neurotypical friends, the next day, they would be in their bed until 4 o'clock and doing nothing. The next day, they would know, I'm going out, I'm going to be wiped out, I won't be doing anything. Whereas I would just be up and out doing things as normal. So there was the part of me that had this compulsion to keep going and I need to do this and I need to do that. But my physical body needed a rest, and I didn't allow that rest. So the more we can learn to know ourselves, the more we can learn to know about ADHD, which the numbers are growing all the time. How much of it's awareness, how much of it is there are more of us with it, I don't know. There is an epidemic of women my age just understanding, and often through their own children's journey, that this is what they have been struggling with for their whole life. Now, some people still don't believe in it, or say to you, I think we're all a wee bit ADHD. And it's difficult because they have no understanding of the journey that you have gone through. So it's really about raising awareness. And if you have a child with ADHD, the sooner you can get them help and support. Now, that doesn't need to be through the mental health services. It can be. Sometimes that help's not available quick enough. We want to be helping them to regulate their emotions, to understand their emotions. We want to start to learn to understand them. There are so many books, so many videos, so many teachers out there with free information where you can just start to learn and be that support for your child. If I'd had that support, my life might have been very different, but I wouldn't have learned all the things I've learned to then be able to help other people, because I know what that anxiety feels like. I know what that unworthiness feels like. And when these people come to me that are talking to me about their addictions, I know why they're doing it. And I also know that saying to them that they shouldn't do it isn't the answer. What was the answer for me was healing myself, getting the coping strategies, healing my trauma, healing my unworthiness, learning all about my difficulties and why they were difficulties, and then also starting to learn what is my area of brilliance, because people with neurodiversity and ADHD, I'll talk ADHD because that's what I'm experienced in. There is an area of brilliance there, but we're usually so stuck in the things that are problems and difficult that we're not really getting a chance to uncover that. And I've understood that on my journey of healing the shame, healing the guilt, healing the trauma, it's only through healing the shame that I can talk openly about the drugs. But we need to start being vulnerable. The haters will hate. That's not who I'm here for. As I've healed my own self-judgment, people can judge me. That's their business. What other people think of me is not my business. As long as I'm okay with me, then it's going to bounce off me. But, if your child is in a state where, they've been judged or they feel they're being judged, they'll be judging themselves. They'll have that wee negative voice all the time. And it's helping to make them aware of that. I'll keep it short. We're not very good at short stories, but I will stop there, and I'm sure I'll talk more about this in future videos. But if I can be of any support, then do drop things in the comments. Feel free to contact me. I'm always happy to do one-to-one coaching. Also wanting to set up a mother and daughter, as I see on social media. Just getting to understand 20% of the population at least are highly sensitive people. And it's a lot of these people that are struggling. And rather than, if we can get the help to them quicker, before things become a problem, they don't need to end up on the streets. They don't need to end up in prisons. And actually, it's not just that we can keep them out of prisons and off the streets. They can be highly valuable members of society when we find their area of brilliance and find their place, because we don't fit in to the mold. We don't fit in necessarily to everywhere, but there will be a place. And when you find that place, then you can really excel. And that's what we're aiming for. So I will leave it there. Lots of love, and I hope you found that helpful. Please subscribe. Please share to anyone that you think this information might be helpful for. It really just helps me to get this information out. So thank you, and lots of love.